that's already so uplifting and so joyful, so transformative. So, what to speak of when we actually connect with the pure vibration. Tunde, there's that famous verse by Rupa Goswami. Tunde tanda vininatin vitanute tundavali labde karna kroda kadambini gatayate karnar bude vyaspiham cheta prangana sangini vijayate no jane janita kiadbir amritai krishniti varnadvai. This is a verse by one of our actually the head of our present lineage, Rupa Goswami, who was appointed by Lord Chaitanya as the leader of his sampradaya, his group. And he's describing in this verse the sweetness of the holy name. And but he says, I'm unable to describe it. No jane janita kiadbir amritai krishniti varna dvayi. Varna is referring to the syllables. Dvayi, two. Krishna is only two syllables. But no jane janita. I'm unable to say how much amrita, how much nectar is present within just these two syllables. And the verse starts saying that when that sound, that sweet sound enters my ears, I think 2 ears are not enough. I need millions of ears to be able to properly appreciate the sweetness of this sound. And when I go to vibrate that name on my tongue, I think two tongues. one tongue. One tongue is not enough, Just like we experience or I experience sometimes, you're eating something very tasty, you think, I wish I had another stomach, Like I want to eat it all over again. It's so tasty, so delicious, So he's expressing, one tongue is not enough to taste the sweetness. I need millions of tongues. I need millions of ears to appreciate this. And when that vibration reaches my heart, he says it conquers it subdues my whole, all of my senses. I become paralyzed by the sweetness, by the potency of this holy name, this divine vibration. So, please excuse me, I'm unable to say, I cannot say, what is here, how sweet it is. So, that it is all there, and we are just getting some touch of it, some touch of that. And our gurus have very mercifully, they've shown us the steps, they've shown us the path by which we can attain that, we can reach that. And also it is really so encouraging, and it's something I always have to remind myself, because it's easy to become discouraged, right? When we were talking earlier about the state of the world, and we begin to contemplate, what horrendous things are taking place around the world. But then going into a more subtle sphere in the plane of our own spiritual practice, we can also get very discouraged, because as we begin to move forward in our practice, then so many of our weaknesses, they become more apparent, right? We were discussing that this morning. There's a whole science to that. There's a whole world just in that. All the different ways in which we can, not do well. So it can be very discouraging to experience that and to face various challenges in the environment too. So within and without, right? It's very easy to become discouraged. But then when we remember, but there's some very good news. Right? Oh he dina jan shuna balokata ula sita hobehiya. Oh no, the balok, what is the balokata? Emana dormati samsaravita podiya achino ami. Tabani jajan kono mahajane patayadi let me. I'm missing the balokata lines. But this song is describing how the great souls come to this world and they approach persons like us saying, I've got some good news. I have some good news for you. But did I say it? Oh he dina jan shuno balokata. I did say it. Oh you poor fallen soul, please listen. I have some balokata, simple Bengali, some good talk, some good news. You should be joyful. Tomare tadite Shri Krishna Chaitanya Navadvipe. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has come just to save you. Just to save you. This morning, someone in Ireland sent me this message saying that there's this phrase. Let me see. Is it Irish or was it Celtic or? Let me look it up right here. Gaelic. In the old Gaelic tradition, a teacher, a companion, or spiritual guide was known as Anam Kada. Anam Kada. Anam means soul, and Kada is friend. So like a spiritual guide was traditionally referred to in this way. Anam Kada, friend of the soul. Friend of the soul, right? Which is very nice because sometimes there's this idea, someone who's your spiritual guide is very remote, right? Or God, like in many world traditions, God is a kind of distant figure, right? An almighty distant figure. But in the Vaishnava tradition, and no doubt other traditions, there's more of an intimate idea. And we see this in our songs also. I mentioned to him that in our song, because in Bengali and of course many other languages too, there are different ways, there are different pronouns used to refer to persons according to the level of intimacy and respect, right? But what's interesting, so in Bengali there are 3 ones, maybe 4 even. But there's there's apni, which is like respected, elder, revered person. Tumi, the intimate. In Gujarati, you probably have it also, right? Yeah. And the Tumi is the intimate, like your friend, your buddy. And then Tui is like a junior, someone that younger, etc. So what's interesting is you'll see in all of the prayers and songs by our teachers, they always use the intimate form of address. That Tumi is always used. So there's this sense of intimacy, and I feel it adds to that nicely. It's a friend of the soul, There's this it's an intimate connection. So, and in another song of Bhakti Vinod, he's expressing Mahaprabhu's call to the souls of this world, right? It's, Jeev Jago, wake up, sleeping souls. And there's that beautiful line, Ami Bina Bandhu Ar Kea Chetumar. Other than myself, who else is your friend? Your bandhu. I'm your best friend. I'm your best friend. Who is more of a friend to us than who is giving us this higher knowledge, higher truth? So, very sweet expression here. I'm coming with the great souls, they're coming, the guru, the guides, they're coming to this world with this good news, balokata, ula sita habe, be happy, be joyful. Tomare tadite shi, just to save you. He's come to this world. Lord Chaitanya has come. He's brought this holy name. So when we remember this, right? Kalir dosha nidera jan yasti heko mahanguna kirtana deva krishnasya mukta sangha parambraja. This is the shining light, the shining hope in this dark age, right? We were discussing earlier some of the symptoms of this age that we are experiencing, that we're seeing now. So this is a famous verse in Srimad Bhagavatam. That kalir dosh is fault. I don't know if there's any similarities in Gujarati with Sanskrit. No, maybe some words are a little similar. Dosh, you recognize that word? Okay, cool, nice. So
It's Hindi.
Hindi, okay, same in Hindi, yeah, and also Bengali. So kalir, in this time of Kali, right? In Kali, kalir dosha nide rajan. There's so many faults. Nide means like needy, like a reservoir, like full of them, unlimited. However, yasti heko ek, there's one mahanguna, one great quality. Kirtana deva krishnasya mukta sangha param. Simply through this Krishna kirtan, which is very simple and very sweet. Even the children can do it, Anyone can do it. Anyone, anywhere, anytime, any place. So it is most simple and most sweet, joyful, and it's such a natural expression too. That simply through this practice, mukta sangha param vraja, the highest destination can be achieved. The highest thing can be achieved. So it is as that Charles Dickens novel begins, it was the worst of times, it was the best of times. That is the nature of this Kali Yuga, this age of Kali. So what we require is faith, actually. Faith in these subtle things. Okay, we're getting some taster, then that should be enough to give us faith, to go deeper into this. Cheto darpana marjanam bhava mahadavagni nirvapanam. Then Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in this Shikshashtakam. I don't know if you've heard of the Shikshashtakam. You may have come across it. There are 8 Shiksha Ashtak. Lord Chaitanya did not put things in writing himself for the most part. He empowered some of his principal followers like Rupa, Sanatan, Jiva, Raghunath to do that. To present with scriptural evidence the conclusions of bhakti devotion. So he didn't do that he didn't do that himself. However, he did give these 8 verses. So they're very, you could understand. He didn't write anything else, but he wrote this. And they're very important. And they're all centered around the chanting of the holy name. So in this first verse, Lord Chaitanya Dev is elaborating upon what are the different steps that will come as one is chanting. The beginning with purification. This is always the beginning, the first part. In the practice of pure devotion, Shuddha Bhakti. There are different types of Bhakti, right? Bhakti can be mixed with many other things. There's this one ISKCON devotee. He has this comic that he publishes on Facebook. Have you seen it? I can't remember his name. It's like a Vaishnava comic that somebody publishes on Facebook, and some of them are very funny. But one of them, it showed a man in a shop, and he had all these bottles, and they're labeled Karma Mishra Bhakti, which means bhakti mixed with your material activity. And then Jnana Mishra Bhakti means bhakti, devotion mixed with the aspiration for liberation, cultivation of knowledge, all these things, moksha. And then there's one that there were a few others, I don't remember them. And then there's one that says Shuddha Bhakti, which means pure devotion. And then there's this customer coming in saying, "Give me the strongest that you got," And then the shopkeeper is like, very like hesitatingly picking up the Shuddha Bhakti. Are you sure you're ready for this? Are you sure you're ready for this? No. It's gonna knock your socks off. No, are you sure? You know? Yeah, we're like ready for the hard stuff, you know. Just give me the straight stuff. So in the culture of pure devotion, which is emphasized by our teachers, then you see in different places that in the beginning, when there's a development of devotion being described, the first stage is always clearing the dirt away. You know, first have a shower. You know, first become clean of your material contamination. And then on that clean platform, then something pure and truly authentic can begin to develop. Because otherwise what can happen is that if we don't have that type of clarity, then we can mix things up very much, and it can become something of a sensual thing. And we lose clarity as to, you know, what this actually is, you know, and where we are right now, right? Because we also need to understand that as long as I'm still recognizing symptoms of a material condition, you know, lust, anger, greed, all these things, then we understand we don't have that pure thing yet. You know, we don't want to enter into a state of self-delusion, right? That's another thing. So there's always this, you know, also in Rupa Goswami's Upadeshamrita, there's another text, the Nectar of Instruction. He begins 11 verses, and the first 2 verses, he's dealing with the negative side. First, clear away the negative side, and then, Jai Prabhu, that. You know, first clear away the negative side, and then something pure can begin to grow from that. Oh, can you move that out the way? Thank you. And this doesn't mean that we wait to practice bhakti until we're clean. That's not what it means. It doesn't mean, oh, first we're going to become pure and then we'll start practicing bhakti. It's not what it means. You know, side by side, you know, it doesn't mean that there may not be some real devotion in somebody. You know, that side by side there's the material struggle and there's also that development of bhakti going on. That is the case. So that's normal and natural. But the idea is that we are having some clarity and giving some attention to, you know, discipline and some regulated lifestyle, regulated practice, some trying to practice some degree of you know, self-control, all of these things, and recognizing the distinction between this and that. You know, what is the material side, what is the spiritual side? And having that clarity that we are in the beginning stage. You know, we won't jump to some fantasy that we're flying in the clouds of bhakti. You know, we understand, oh, I'm recognizing the symptoms of someone who's still, you know, in the beginning stages. So in this first verse of these 8 verses, the Lord Chaitanya is describing, is it 7 stages of development? And the first is Chaito Darpana Marjanam, means that here the consciousness is compared to a mirror, a bright, you know, clear, clean mirror. And so Chaito, consciousness, Chaitan, Marjana, mirror. Marjanam, cleaning. So the first stage, so this is describing one who has touched the pure name, that pure vibration of the pure name. Then what will happen? You know, what are the different stages one will go through in their progress? Then the first is that purification of the consciousness will take place. And one interesting point that Srila Sridhar Maharaj makes in his commentary on this verse is that this is actually the final result of the whole Varnashrama system. The whole Varnashram, this system, social system of India, social religious system, it's the whole purpose of it is to bring one to this point. Cleansing of the consciousness. And this is the first, so the last final stage, the final result of Varnashram is this. This is the first step in the chanting of the holy name. So I'll explain that a little bit. Why is that so? Because the idea behind the Varnashrama system is karma yoga, nishkam karma yoga. That's, in other words, selfless duty. This is the basis of the Varnashrama system. How it became corrupted, that's another matter. But the idea behind it, the theory behind it, is that everyone in that system has a particular duty, which is ascertained according to their particular nature. And by engaging, then they're fulfilling that role in a selfless spirit of duty. And that spirit of selflessness, not attaching personal results to our actions, is very purifying. It starts to clear the filters of on our consciousness. Because it's when we're acting in selfishness, that's what reinforces these layers, these filters over our consciousness, these selfish, constricting, filters. So when we start, so selflessness cleans that, removes that, because we're no longer reinforcing those things. It's very practical. It's science. Anybody can go home and practice this, whether you believe in anything. You can experience this transformation. So this is the idea behind the Varnashram system. So then the result of that is some cleansing takes place, and then you're qualified for higher spiritual development. And this is the progress described in Bhagavad Gita. Right? First karma yoga, and then you have, cultivation of knowledge and yoga, all these things. So this whole elaborate Varnashrama system brings you to this point. This is the first step of Harinam, Kirtan, Lord's holy names. So Cheto Darpanam Marjanam Bhava Mahadavagni Nirvapanam. Here the karmic entanglement in samsara is compared to a Bhava Mahadavagni, a raging forest, a Maha forest fire, a raging forest fire. Nirvapanam, that will be extinguished. So cleansing of the consciousness, and then our karmic bondage will be cut, will be removed. Bhava Mahadavagni Nirvapanam. And then, so the first two stages, they're clearing away the negative side. And then the third stage, the positive attainment of the soul begins. Then Shreya Kairava Chandrika Vitaranam. This is a very beautiful expression, comparing the soul to a lotus. And there are different types of lotus. There are different types of flowers, right? And some bloom, some blossom under the sun, some blossom under the moonlight. And so this Kairava, this is a particular type of lotus that blooms under the moon, the light of the moon. And so, sometimes the suffering of material existence in the Vedic scriptures, it's compared to this, like a type of burning heat, this top, right? Tapatrai. It's like this forest fire. It's like this heat, this very, agitating, destructive, burning. So the holy name, Chandrika, Chandra, the holy name is compared to a cooling moon, that's giving some relief. We're burning in that forest fire of material suffering, and the holy moon of the holy name is giving some cooling relief. And so beautiful, this analogy. So then that moon of the holy name is shining upon that Kairava lotus, right? The heart, the consciousness, the soul of the individual. And under that light, the heart is blossoming, awakening, coming alive. Our soul is like in this inactive state right now. Doesn't have anything to do here. It's like it's undernourished, malnourished. So the soul is in this, malnourished slumber. Here, there's nothing to do, nothing to eat. So, but then coming in touch with the holy name, that's the soul is spirit. The soul needs food of spirit food. So the holy name is nourishing that. The holy name is causing that the soul to awaken, to begin to blossom like that lotus flower under the light of the moon. And so what does that mean? Practically speaking, it means that the soul begins to awaken within the life of dedication, begins to find its place in the life of dedication. Many other religious views, they stop at point 2, right? Purification from the material plane, and that's the end, right? There are many systems of the Vedic tradition and others throughout the world. They kind of end there. We clear away the dirt, we clear away the negative side, and then it all becomes a bit hazy, right? It's all a bit unknown. We just merge into this oneness, or we're not quite sure. It's all a bit unknown at that point. But in the Vaishnava school, it is clearly described and clearly understood that there's something on the other side. Once you clear away the dirt, there's actually a positive and progressive life of immortality. Immortality doesn't just end in nothingness. Immortality doesn't just end in oneness. No, but there's a positive and progressive dynamic life within immortality. This is one of the principal gifts of Vaishnavism, of the Vaishnava school. We were going through Srila Swami Maharaj Prabhupada's introduction to Chaitanya Charitamrita, and he was explaining this phrase, Chaitanya Charitamrita, right? On one level it means the life of Lord Chaitanya, right? The nectarian life. But on another level, Chaitanya means consciousness, the life force. And Charit Amrita, what is the Amrita? Nectar and also immortality. So Charit, the nature. What is the nature of the soul within the plane of immortality? Prapana Jivanamrita is the same similar idea there, right? What is the nature of the life of a surrendered soul in immortality? So what happens? What do you do in immortality? Because just to be immortal in and of itself doesn't have much value. You can be a stone. You can be an immortal stone, right? There are trees that live for hundreds, maybe thousands of years, right? What is actually the value? Just existence is not enough. Satyam, Shivam, Sundaram, right? Sat, Chit, Ananda. Sat, existence. Chit, consciousness. Consciousness gives meaning to existence, right? And eternity. But then that you need something else. You need something to taste. You need some beauty. You need some love. So that's only described in the Vaishnava school, the positive and progressive life of immortality. And that necessarily, it's all very scientific. It all adds up very well. Then necessarily that must mean in the expression of dedication. We can only enter a higher plane if we are entering as a giving agent. It's common sense. I have an American passport, I'm allowed to enter Britain on the premise, with the understanding that I'm here to contribute something. I'm not here to exploit or to colonize, right? If I have to apply, I'm going to go to India, I have to get a visa. Why will they give me a visa? What is the basis of my application for a visa and them accepting it and granting it? That I'm coming to contribute to their economy, to their culture in some way. I'm not coming to make India, something for my benefit, to exploit India for my upliftment, for my benefit, my own gain. But I'm coming to add something. I'm coming to bring something. Then they'll let you in. Otherwise, we don't need you. We have something going on here. We're only accepting contributors here. It's just common sense. So as Satan said, right, to reign in hell or to serve in heaven, right? You can only enter heaven if you're entering with that spirit of service. If you want to be a master, you necessarily must come in contact with that which is lower than yourself, right? You can only be a master of that which is less than yourself. If you want to contact something that is higher than yourself, you must do so with the spirit of submission, service, dedication, offering. It is all very commonsensical. So, Shreya Kairava Chandri Kavi Taranam, then the soul will begin to awaken, to discover its place in the world of dedication, of giving. Here, the soul is constricted because the soul lives by giving. Srila Sridhar Maharaj expresses that in one place, that's the spirit of selfishness. It kills the soul. It's an anathema to the soul. It is the very opposite tendency of the soul. It freezes the soul. And that spirit of giving, it opens, it awakens the soul. That is the mode of the soul, to live in a spirit of giving. So that's something kind of unknown in this world. It's known to a limited degree. In one place, Srila Sridhar Maharaj, he says how in this world we know of, there are famous explorers of the past, who have discovered places, like Columbus discovered America, and so on. These great adventurers, mountain climbers, and so on, right? But he explains there are also explorers in the world of consciousness, who are exploring so many subtle planes. So that world of dedication, it is as yet somewhat unknown in this world. It's not so the nature of that plane is unknown. So this verse of Lord Chaitanya Dev is saying, through the chanting of the holy name, through the practice of kirtan, we will be granted entrance into that higher plane. We will begin to find ourselves in that higher plane, in that plane of giving.
Hidden treasure of the absolute.
And then vidyavadu jivanam, some more intimate connection with the Lord will be granted. Shreya Kairava Chandrika Vitaranam Vidyavadu Jivanam Anandam Buddhi Vardhanam means one will experience an ocean of ever increasing ananda, joy, happiness. It is fresh. There's one phrase of Srila Sridhar Maharaj, he says, he's commenting on that line, and he says, it is not stale joy that we experience in this world. It is a stale joy. It is a living and fresh and dynamic joy there. It occurred to me before about this line, how, like in the consumer world, because when I was in school, I remember we we had like a food tech class that I did, and we had to like pretend we were like marketing some product, right? And one of like the what's considered a desirable quality is reliability of taste, right? Like it's considered like it's a good quality, right, for a food company to have, that customers know like there's some reliability, or you're always going to get that same taste that you always want. A Kit Kat's always going to taste like a Kit Kat, and so on and so forth. But this is actually like a stagnant, stale thing. Imagine buying your Kit Kat, and every time it tastes 100 times better than it did before. And there's so many like new nuances to the flavor, that are coming. It's always something fresh and different and new. Can we imagine such a thing? So our that we can get some idea. Our conception of joy is very limited, right? It's very, very finite and stagnant. People they'll have like a list of like their like hobbies and things that they do. They know when I do this I get this buzz, and when I do this then I feel this way, and I watch this movie or whatever it may be, right? You have some set of experiences that you kind of like go through again and again, knowing you're going to get that same feeling. But if you really think about it, it's like actually kind of dry, and it's like, what about something fresh and different and new and unexpected? Imagine, every time you go to read some particular book, you have like a million new insights, a million new sensations and feelings. That is the nature of that. Anything of that higher nature, it is full of unlimited significance, meaning, feeling. So Anandam Buddhi Vardhanam, one will experience an ocean of ever-increasing joy. Fresh, dynamic, increasing joy. Pratipadam Purnam Rita Svadanam. And at every step one will experience the taste of full nectar, full ecstasy. Purnamrita Svadam, Sarvatma Snapanam. Every aspect, every layer, every phase of our existence will be fully satisfied, completely, wholeheartedly fulfilled. Which is another interesting thought, because normally, like different things that we do, like one thing we do is pleasing our eyes, another thing we do is pleasing our tongue, another thing is pleasing our body, another thing is pleasing our stomach, and another thing is pleasing our mind, another thing is pleasing our, right? There's like different things we may do, right? On the gross level and a subtle level. But there's every phase of our existence, every last layer, every aspect of our existence will be fully satisfied, fulfilled by this. And then Padam Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtan, final line. It's like a very rousing call. May this Krishna Sankirtan, may it be victorious. So Padam Vijayate, may it be supremely victorious over all. So many dark waves, right? And especially in this age, there are so many dark waves that are moving in the atmosphere. So many different currents, dark currents. But may this powerful, potent wave, divine wave of Krishna, Kirtan, may that be victorious over all. May it conquer all. May it conquer everyone's hearts. May it conquer everyone's lives. May beauty conquer all. May love conquer all. May truth conquer all. That is what this Kirtan represents, right? Beauty, love, truth, joy. May that higher wave, override every other wave. May that be supremely victorious. May it reign supreme over all. Very, very beautiful verse. Beautiful verse. So may that conquer over us. But really, if we consider, that we cannot deny that we all get some touch, right? Otherwise we wouldn't be here. We're getting some touch. So we know there's something here. Our Guru Dev, he would say, I don't like to cheat anyone. I'm not here to cheat anybody. If this was cheating, I would have left long ago. But I'm here to give something real. I'm here to share something real. So we also have to think about that and try to be more real in our practice, right? Invest more attention to that, and we will experience more of the result also. As you sow, so you shall reap.
Sometimes try to explain things to people or friends and things like that. And I was thinking that unless they're really touched by something, it's hard. You can't really explain anything. Right? Do you think?
It's a very good point, actually. It's an interesting point. Yeah, it's quite a profound point, actually. Srila Sridhar Maharaj actually mentions this in, I believe, Subjective Evolution. And I believe he's referencing this verse in Bhagavad Gita, Indriyani Pranya Hur Indriyebhya Paramanaha Manasastu Prabhadya Yobode Paratastu. So he's describing, Bhagavad Gita is describing the different layers, right? The senses, the mind, the intelligence, and the Atma. Right? How we experience there are these different layers playing over the Atma, playing over the soul. And then in connection with that, Srila Sridhar Maharaj, she makes this same point, that he says that when we actually have some touch, when we experience that plane of Atma, then he says our progress will begin in earnest. He says, then we can really begin to make real progress. Like once we've had some real experience of that, some touch of that ourselves. He says that same thing. Because this is something that goes beyond the intellect. It goes beyond that. And you won't be able to really give yourself to this earnestly until you've had some touch of that yourself. There's that famous analogy given, right, of that, or not, analogy is the wrong word, parable, perhaps, that Saraswati Thakur would tell of a man who lived in a dungeon his whole life and never saw the sun. And then finally he has the opportunity to go out, and his friend comes to take him out. Come, I will show you the sun. And then the poor man's picking up his torch or some light and his lantern. And his friend says, "Oh, what do you need? What are you bringing that for? You don't need a lantern to see the sun." And the man said, "What do you mean? You need a light to see everything. Of course I need to bring the lantern." And then finally he comes out and sees the sun for the first time. "Oh, now I understand. Now I understand." But before that, he couldn't understand. Oh, you have to go? Does she have to go? She asked the question. What is it for? Now we lost both of you. I wanted to tell you another story. Yeah, and you reminded me of one story that our Gurudev told. At one time he was leading a pilgrimage party to Badarik Ashram, and Srila Sridhar Maharaj had come on that occasion, and he became very, very unwell. He was very sick, and he had a high fever, and he had to stay in his room. This is Srila Sridhar Maharaj. And then one day there was one scholar who came by. And in India there's a whole tradition of debate, right? Spiritual debates, scholarly spiritual debate. And so this scholar, he came and he said, I heard about this great Vaishnava scholar, Sridhar Maharaj, and I have a question for him, because I've asked many people and nobody's satisfied me. And so, our Gurudev, and there were others there, they said, we're sorry, Sridhar Maharaj is not well, he cannot receive you now. But some of Srila Sridhar Maharaj's godbrothers were there, and they were also very scholarly, and so they said, we'll have some discussion. And so his question was, what is the actual proof that the Atma exists? And so they were going on for some time with this discussion, going back and forth. But the man was not satisfied, and it was just kind of going on and on, not really getting anywhere. And then, meanwhile, Srila Sridhar Maharaj, he's in the back room, he can hear everything, And then finally, he can't take it anymore. So he sits up in his bed, and he called down. And Gurudev even imitated his voice, he's very sort of high fever, So, and Srila Sridhar Maharaj, he called out weakly, bring him here. Bring him here. So they brought the man into Srila Sridhar Maharaj's room. And then Srila Sridhar Maharaj, he quoted this, how does it go, that verse? It's a verse in Srimad Bhagavatam. I can't remember right now. But the translation is, though that some say that the Atma exists, and Atma can be translated as soul, but also as the Supreme Soul, God, consciousness, this plane of spirit, right? So some say the Atma exists, Atma Parigyana-mayo, that's it, it begins like that, Atma Parigyana-mayo. So some say that Atma exists, some say it doesn't exist. But this debate will continue eternally, because some have the eyes to see and others don't have the eyes to see. Very simple, very straightforward. You either have the eyes to see or you don't have the eyes to see. And Srila Sridhar Maharaj spoke with that man, maybe 15, 20 minutes. And the man, he completely surrendered to Srila Sridhar Maharaj. And he said to Srila Sridhar Maharaj, I know that verse. It's not like I don't know that verse, but the way in which you expressed it to me, seeing that light in your eyes, to see your an animation within you, that wholly moved me, that convinced me more. So it's interesting, he got some touch through Srila Sridhar Maharaj. Although he may not have experienced the Atma himself, he's observing someone who is experiencing the Atma, and he's getting some touch through that. And I can also say, in my own case, what convinces me more than anything now, to me, the philosophy all makes very perfect sense, etc., etc. But what convinces me more than anything else is that I met a pure Vaishnava. I met a Paramahamsa Vaishnava, our Gurudev, Srila Govinda Maharaj, and it was undeniable that he was connected with the higher plane. I met one woman recently. It was in SoCal, California, and she took initiation from our Gurudev also, and she said she was an atheist before, and that was what she'd grown up with as well, like very rational minds, But when she met Srila Govinda Maharaj, she somehow happened to meet him. She said it was undeniable to her. All her logic, rational thinking, modern science, it all just went out the window. Because it was a tangible experience that she had. Someone's in connection with the higher plane, a plane of spirit. It was undeniable. She could not deny it. Feeling that vibration, being in the presence of someone like that, she could not deny it. So yes, It is true. It's true. It's interesting, it's a very interesting topic. There's this one man in America who's become like a friend of our devotees and a friend of myself. And he grew up in his family where his one side of the family was atheist. Let me see if I can get it right. I think his father's side was atheist, and his mother's side, they were Christians or Catholic. Italians, it must be Catholic, I think. And so he in his early years, he grew up with faith. And then when he's 8 years old, his grandmother tells him, there's no God. Can you imagine an evil grandmother? He's 8 years old. It's like he's not old enough to have any reference point, able to make his own decisions. So he's 8. On his father's side, grandmother tells him there's no God. And she said something very funny, like, they said that God was in the sky, but the Wright brothers invented the airplane, and they went in the sky, and God wasn't there. And they said God was in space, but then our astronauts went into outer space. They didn't find God there, you know. So there's no God. The poor boy is completely traumatized. And for the next 20 years of his life, he was in this state of intense conflict. It's like, is there a God? Isn't there a God? Is there a God? Isn't there a God? And then finally he just decided there's no God. And then, interesting, he came in touch with our devotees. It's like less than a year. It was over Christmas. He met one of our Chintamani. And he's a chiropractor, and he's been visiting our ashram in California, and he loves serving the devotees. He sits in the kirtan, he hears the classes, you know, like he loves it. He says, like, this is my community, this is my people. But he's struggling with faith. He doesn't believe because he hasn't had that touch. You know, it's like kind of like his heart wants to go to this, but he hasn't had this like strong experience, and his mind, his intellect is struggling with it. I've never seen a case quite like this, you know. So
he likes he's been touched by the devotees a bit.
he loves the devotees. Yeah, he loves doing service for the devotees. He's been like as a chiropractor, he's been treating a lot of the devotees, but his brain is struggling. His brain is struggling, and he hasn't had like a clear, that undeniable touch of spirit, right? That some people have. So yes, I would agree that also depends on grace too, right? There must be some grace for someone to be able to be allowed, right, to perceive that. To see that. That's another element here. It's not something that can be forced or just explained, you know. It's not about that. There's this other unknown factor in the background, you know, the Krishna factor. You know, have they been given that grace to be able to see?
Do you think that part
But I'm sorry, I just add to that. What's very interesting though is he did make one, I'm actually seeing some progress, and I think because he's serving the Vaishnavas, and he admitted this time when I saw him, he admitted that he feels some difference, like when he prays or when he does some chanting, like he's like feeling some difference. And that was amazing, because before he was much more cynical, and like he'd tell me everybody's crazy, you know, like I love everyone here, but they're all crazy, you know. He was much more cynical about it, you know.
Who's that?
This is Dr. Mark. He's a chiropractor who's been joining our programs and stuff. I called him. I made a little YouTube video about his case. I called it for the reluctant atheist. Like, he was an atheist, but he didn't want to be, you know. But now he's transitioning, and last time I told him, I said, now I'm gonna make a new video. I'm gonna call it the reluctant theist. Like, you're getting closer now, because he actually like came out and said that you know, I'm feeling some difference, you know, feeling some difference. That's all I wanted to say. You were going to say something.
I think you answered it because I was going to inspire the story is thinking, do you think that part's the stronger part? Because sometimes our mind will put labels and tell us things.
Exactly,
and
labels, yeah.
That attraction is the real bit. And people say, oh, I'm this or that. And it's amazing what you just said. The other day on Harinam in London, there was somebody who was dancing at the end with us. And he says, oh, he's really like it. He said, oh, I used to be Catholic and I used to be, now I'm an atheist. But you're singing really, all of you really touched my soul, but I don't believe, I loves it. It's like,
it's interesting, you see people having this struggle. Yeah.
Something mental.
Yeah.
The soul actually knows already.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
And when we hear like the devotee develops sukriti by serving a pure Vaishnava, right? But if in this case the person serves like many Vaishnavas, maybe on the path towards pure, then will that also count in that way?
Sorry, what did you say?
So,
serving Vaishnavas, is that what
yeah.
you said? Yeah, that will give sukriti.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So instead of only pure Vaishnava, it will give sukriti also by serving the Vaishnavas.
You mean the non-pure Vaishnavas? Is that what you're saying?
No, well, that's what I'm kind of in the journey towards purity,
I'm sorry, I think I spaced out, I missed some key phrases. Sorry, can you give me the gist of what you're saying?
So we hear sukriti is developed by serving a pure Vaishnava, agyata sukriti, that and then you will start your spiritual life. So in this case, what you explain, the person is associating with the Vaishnavas, and maybe they all on their journey not being completely pure, maybe. So will he gather also agyata sukriti in that case?
Oh, absolutely,
no.
absolutely. I mean, one thing also you have to remember is that, we may all be, not up to the mark, or at least myself, but we're connected with the pure Vaishnava, right?
Yeah.
No. But that's a whole other conversation. That's a deep conversation. Maybe for another day, But generally, I would say, everyone has, Gurudev would, sorry, Guru, I'll just finish. Everyone has some percentage of Vaishnava talk, right? And that is something. If you have 1%, if you're 1% Vaishnava, that's a lot. 2% Vaishnava. So if anybody is offering something to someone like that, they will gain. It will be the gainer. Then if we want to, maybe we don't want to go too deep into that discussion. Maybe we don't want to analyze it too much. But I would just say something's going on. Something good is gonna happen. How much, to what degree, in what way exactly. Maybe we don't need to analyze it too much, but someone's connected to the pure. That's another point too. We're connected to the pure Vaishnava. So
one thing I say to myself when I'm doing the garden is, you're pleasing the devotees by doing the garden, and by doing that you automatically please Srila Govinda Maharaj, and by pleasing Srila Govinda Maharaj you please Srila Sridhar Maharaj, and the rest of the Surah.
Jai.
Nice. Telescopic system,
I think we should stop. We're getting a little late. A very nice discussion with all of you today.
I thought also what you said, to have an intimate relationship with the Lord is almost like you cannot think that, right? Also Krishna consciousness in general, all these different phrases where you go through, and aiming to have an intimate relationship with the Lord, and that Guru Maharaj also says like it is almost impossible to think about that is possible, but we hanker for that. The soul hankers for an intimate relationship with the Lord because the soul is of that same substance. So it's only natural to have that. And I think that you mentioned that is very important, that hankering and sincerity comes up to go on that journey, no doubt with mistakes, but to understand all the challenges and the tests we're going through life, that is actually good for us because it brings us deeper to our intimate relationship with the Lord, that we need that. I thought that was nice.
And going back to your other question, I mean, there's more that can be said on that, but that's more when you get to a more refined level of practice. For someone who's coming in the beginning, right, any Vaishnava that they can serve is going to be a promotion for them, right?
Yeah.
But once, yes, it is true, when you come to a more involved, serious level of refined practice, then you need to consider some of those things. But otherwise, someone who's coming with nothing, they'll get some upgrade in whatever Vaishnava they're serving, right? So.
And also they say like the deepest plane in your heart is service. It is the service spirit, right? That is the deepest plane in your heart, in your soul. That is of service because no ego can come into that. So that is, and then that connection with the Lord comes also. That is the connection with the Lord in that service spirit of that it is in the deepest place of your heart, of your soul.
Jai. Do we have a pujari?
Yeah.
Are you the pujari? Okay. Does someone know how to turn off? Or do we leave the camera going? Turn it off?
Did we leave the camera?
Maybe we should stop it because there's a delay. Jai Shishi Guru Gauranga Sundar Radha Giri Hare Ki Jai Guru Devi Ki Jai Vaishnava
I'm going to ask Saraswati too.
So I think Vishakha, you think so? Oh. I have to ask because I can't remember how to do this. What should we do with the camera?
I think she wants to be the artist.
Guru. Okay, turn it.
Yeah.